We got some huge NFL news that impacts the New Orleans Saints. The Atlanta Falcons have hired Kevin Stefanski to be their next head coach. In this video, I'm going to tell you what it means for the black and gold from a Saints fan's perspective. But I want to hear from you, Who Dat Nation. What are your thoughts on Kevin Stefanski to Atlanta? Sound off. Get your honest opinions in the comment section. I'm going to be interacting with you guys, and Lopez is going to be responding to each and every one of you. So share your thoughts before we get this breakdown going. So obviously yesterday we had some playoff football going on, and there were some crazy things that happened. Bo Nix and the Broncos won, but Nix snapped his ankle, and then you see Rashid Shaheed take a opening kickoff to the crib, and the Seahawks dismantled 49ers. And the Atlanta Falcons, naturally, they just couldn't get out of the limelight. They needed to have some attention. So at 9:45 last night, they made their hire for their next head coach, Adam Schefter, breaking the news. The Atlanta Falcons are finalizing a deal with Kevin Stefanski to be their next head coach. Two-time NFL Coach of the Year, flew to Atlanta on Saturday. Now will stay on to take over the Falcons head coaching job. Now he's going to be joining Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Matt Ryan is the new president of football, by the way, in case you guys missed that. He was one of their top candidates from what we understand from reports. Obviously, they were going to be interested in Clint Kubiak. They obviously interviewed a handful of different candidates, but Atlanta wanted to not wait, not gamble, not risk missing out on a guy like Kubiak. They just wanted to go and get their dude, Kevin Stefanski. And he is, again, a two-time NFL Head Coach of the Year award winner, which for what it's worth is pretty impressive if you're coaching the Browns. And he's an offensive-minded head coach, heavy play-action mindset. This is where the NFL is evolving. It seems like the recipe is head coach that is offensive with a smart and elite defensive coordinator. That really seems like to the recipe for success nowadays. He has 8 combined wins in the last 2 seasons, not a very large winning record overall. And I will just say, it feels like a safe hire. Like, I don't think that this is one of those hires that is going to make me nervous as a Saints fan, but I'm also not going to sit here and say, oh, we're going to steamroll the Atlanta Falcons every time we play them. Like, quite honestly, Kevin Stefanski just feels aggressively safe. Like, you know, he isn't the belle of the ball. But if you're not going to get John Harbaugh, I feel like he's a pretty good consolation prize. And, you know, at the end of the day, who really cares? It doesn't matter. The Atlanta Falcons are frauds. They're losers. They're a bunch of bums anyway. They always will be the Atlanta Falcons. And we will be talking about the next head coach they hire in a couple of years. But for what it's worth, I do think it's an upgrade over Raheem Morris. But it doesn't matter. I have faith in Kellen Moore. I have faith in Tyler Shough. Let's roll. Let's get this thing going, and let's take down the Falcons. Let's take down the Bucs, and let's take down the Panthers and go get back on top of the NFC South. By the way, checking in on our NFC South sub-battle, it is not looking good. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 700 subscribers down from Falcons today. Do you understand how embarrassing that is? The Falcons host, his name is also Trace. I have to hear that all day, that I'm the better Trace. We swept you this season. I have more subs this offseason. Please, shut him up. Who's the better fan base? It's the Who Dat Nation. Subscribe today. Now, more coaching information and intel and news and updates for you guys to know. Tommy Rees, he looks like it's going to be him as the offensive coordinator. He was with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. Jeff Ulbrich on defense, he is going to be sticking around for the Atlanta Falcons. I will say Jeff Ulbrich's defense is really, really nice. They were second in sacks this year. They were very dominant in a lot of different facets, and I think that he is a really, really smart defensive coordinator, and I really like the pairing of Stefanski and Ulbrich. But I will say with Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator, maybe he learned from his mistakes in Cleveland. I don't necessarily know, but I don't think that that's one that I'm necessarily worried about. But more information that came out earlier today, just a few minutes before filming this video. Bill Callahan, veteran offensive line coach. He is also joining the Atlanta Falcons with head coach Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator. So it looks like the offensive coaching staff starting to really take shape for the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, Jeff Ulbrich and a lot of their defensive coaching staff, I expect that to be fairly similar to what it was last year. Maybe they change up some of like the positional coaches, but all in all, I think the meat and potatoes are going to stay pretty much the same for the defensive side of the football. And again, I think that's because the Falcons defense was pretty good. Like, I don't like to give the Falcons credit, and I'm not one to give the city of Atlanta their flowers. That being said, you do have to give them some credit. Like, their defense was pretty nice last year. They weren't elite. Don't let somebody tell you that they were elite by any means, but they were good. And they're a team that has struggled to get after the quarterback, create pressure, and get sack production. This year, they were able to do that, especially on the backs of rookie draft picks Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. They were really, really effective. The Falcons' defense in 2025, opponent points per game, they were 19th. They were 15th in yards per game. They were second in sacks for the total team amount, 57 total, which is really impressive. Third down percentage, 39.9%. That was 18th, and they were 13th in opponent red zone scoring percentage. So for the Atlanta Falcons, they are a decent defense, and I do expect them to be better, or to get better, and I do expect that side of the football to improve because they do have good players. They do have nice playmakers on both sides of the football. The entire roster isn't horrible, but they are also the Atlanta Falcons, so, you know, they're going to do what they do and choke leads. And why are they going to choke leads? Because their defense will just always do that, but honestly, it's going to be hard for them to get leads. Found this pretty interesting. The Reese and Stefanski-led Browns offense, they ranked 30th in total yards and 31st in points scored in 2025. So for what it's worth, you want to call this good news for Saints fans? I like to view it that way. I think that this is good news because obviously the Falcons offense under Zach Robinson, they weren't amazing. They weren't horrible. You know, it just wasn't great. Raheem Morris got fired. I think that this is just like the next iteration of who's going to be the next coach to get fired, and we're going to be having this conversation again in a couple of years anyway. But all in all, that's pretty funny that Tommy Reese and Kevin Stefanski, you know, supposed to be this offensive guru or this offensive playmaker, you know, mastermind, whatever, 31st and 30th, you know, whatever. That being said, we do have some really nice hoodies. If you guys want to go get some new hoodies, chatsports.com/Saints hoodie. Link is clickable in the comments and description of this video. If you guys want to go get some new gear this offseason, it is cold here in Dallas. I know in New Orleans, it's not much better. It's cold wherever you're at. And you know what? Might as well get some new threads. The Saints are on the up and up, so I'm going to go and get myself a new hoodie. This one's absolutely fresh, and we got it on sale. Click the link in the comments or description down below, chatsports.com/Saints hoodie. You can get this hoodie or many others on sale if you click the link down below. Now, I think it's a fair question to ask when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons moving forward. You bring in a new head coach. You bring in some new management stuff with the president of football operations is with Matt Ryan and stuff. Like, there's a lot of changes going on with Atlanta, and we also know that a few years ago they used a first-round pick on Michael Penix after they signed Kirk Cousins to an extremely lucrative deal. So I'm going to beg the question, and I think it's a fair question to ask. Will Michael Penix be the franchise quarterback with a new regime? I mean, he's 25 years old. He's already had 3 season-ending knee surgeries for ACL tears. Cousins and Stefanski, for what it's worth, they overlapped in Minnesota. And I just think it's something to consider. Like, I do think that Michael Penix is a good football player. But you got to be on the field. And the best ability is availability. And if you're 25 years old and you have a lot of injuries, that's not necessarily the most comforting thing in the world, which is ironic coming from a Saints fan who has Tyler Shough as their guy. But long story short, I think it's a fair question to ask with an entirely new regime coming in. Are we going to see some changes at the quarterback position? Could, you know, Kirk Cousins decide to come back and, you know, they make decisions with Michael Penix? He's not going to be ready week 1. Like, there's definitely questions that need to be asked and some solutions that need to be found for Atlanta this offseason. And I will give credit where it's due. They do have playmakers all over the roster. Like, I think with the Atlanta Falcons, like I said a little bit ago, their defense has some really, really nice players. Their offense has some really nice weapons. Bijan Robinson is a freak. Drake London is really nice. Do they bring back Kyle Pitts? I don't know. What's going to happen? Does David Njoku go to Atlanta? Like, there's a lot of things that will happen with Atlanta, and there's a lot of things that they'll do to change their roster. But I do think when you look at them as a whole, they have a talented team. And they are just the Atlanta Falcons, so death taxes them just effing it up. It is pretty funny to sit here and say, here's the credit, we got to give it to you, but reminder, they don't have a first-round pick. Like, they also don't have a fifth-round pick. Not as much of a concern, but they traded away their first-round pick because they wanted to get 2 last year. The Los Angeles Rams hold their first-round pick this year. I believe it's 12th, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. All in all, the Atlanta Falcons do have decisions to make. They have questions to answer, and they got to figure some stuff out throughout the rest of this offseason. Obviously, Stefanski is a guy who could bring a little bit of stability and a little bit of experience and some upside to Atlanta, but I do know that the fan base is pretty split for the Falcons. Some of them think it's an awesome hire. Some of them think it's an absolutely terrible hire. I think that there were better options out there, but I also think there were worse options out there. This one just feels like an extremely safe move for the Atlanta Falcons. My final thoughts, I think that overall the NFC South, it's going to be much more competitive moving forward. I think when you talk about this division, they are no longer the laughingstock of football. And honestly, they weren't even the worst division of football this past season. The NFC East exists, by the way. They were terrible. And for what it's worth, I do think the NFC South, when you look at the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Saints specifically, the arrows are trending very upwards. The Buccaneers, they're still a decent team. They still have a good core together. I think they're a little bit on the downward slope, but I think overall, when you talk about this division, 8 wins is not going to win you the division anymore. You're going to have to get to double-digit wins. This is going to be a real division in football once again. So I think the NFC South is just going to be much more competitive moving forward, and Kevin Stefanski does increase the competitiveness within the division. Now, if you want the Saints to win the NFC South, give me a who dat down in the comment section. Also, fun fact, Kevin Stefanski 0-1 against the New Orleans Saints, so the dude has never beat our team. So there you go. Have some fun with that. Now, my name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. You've been watching Saints Now by Chat Sports. Appreciate you guys for rocking and rolling with us in today's video. The Falcons hired Kevin Stefanski. That is huge NFL news. It majorly impacts the New Orleans Saints because obviously they're our biggest rivals and we're within the division. So this is going to be a really fun year in 2026 for Kellen Moore, for Tyler Shough, and the rest of the New Orleans Saints. And we're going to be here every step of the offseason and every snap next year. Make sure you subscribe, hit me up on social media, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.